what happened with us is there's so much years difference between me and Gene. I didn't have two parents. I had three, because Mom was 16 when she had Gene, and Gene was 15 years older than me when I was born.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had, when I was like 4 and 5, he was 20. So he was going to college, and he was.
Right. And
so,
I remember seeing you type in a comment in an article that Dave Sim wrote about him, saying that you were like only 16 when he died too. So
yeah, in 82, I was only 16. I was born in 65. So I was only 16, but I was getting groomed that summer to take over to be the new assistant. I was, Danny he was moving on, because every page that Gene did for Marvel, from the get-go, from the very first page, Danny's hands touched it too. He blacked in and he erased every page, then re-blacked it, because Gene insisted on re-blacks.
Oh, wow. Wow.
On there. So he was doing that. And then Danny was just starting to go and do his own. He did that story that appeared in Epic called The Champion, that Gene co-plotted with him, and then Doug Mitch wrote. He did that issue. It was like a 24 pager, and they cut it down to like 18 pages or 21 pages, and they cut it down to 15 pages. But Danny's reprinted it, and it's out there. Danny's reprinted it, and I think
do you know what issue of Epic that was?
No, I can't. But it was being the summer of 82. It would have been summer of 82 or 83. It would have came out on it there. So Danny was doing that, and so he needed somebody else. Like Gene, how he worked. Like everybody wondered, well, how did he do 6 pages a day on Star Wars? Again, because Danny was with him the whole time. It was like a factory. It was. Gene was. Don't kid you. He was the #1 guy. He laid down the important lines all over. Sure. All Danny did was black in, and Carmen Infantino's ships and guns were constantly bent. He had weird angles because he's just one of those old guys that went really, really fast. So Danny would come through and he would tighten it all up, and he would, add a little bit of stuff to the background, lines on it, stuff, and then Gene would ink it up. But he could do 6 pages a day though on Star Wars.
Wow. Yeah, I was reading something about how he had to do like a huge page story that Jim Shooter sent him, like just like over a weekend. Or is that when he went to New York? I'm trying to like put all
he went to New York. He had it happen 2 times. He had it happen when he went to New York to do the Silhouette story that appeared in Bizarre Adventure. And he went down there. It was already penciled. He went down there to ink it over the weekend. And a bunch of other guys helped him out. McLeod, Joe Rubenstein, other guys that were in the bullpen helped Gene out over the weekend. He worked on it. And then the other time it happened really, really bad was they called him up and I said, would you do this thing 2-in-1 annual? And it was the one that has the American Eagle. Well, Ron Wilson back then, he didn't know what you were getting when he was penciling. He was giving you stick figures half the time, and Gene was an embellisher on. He said, "Oh no, these ones look really good." And when Gene got it, they looked really bad. And so Gene brought in another guy from Toronto to help work on it. The guy did very little, but Danny did. Again, he did half the stuff on it. So with him, with the backgrounds, like he would tighten up the backgrounds with pencil. Right. And then Gene would ink it all up, and then Danny said he would keep a full-time guy just blacking stuff in and erasing the pages and re-blacking them in, because he said Gene really want that black and really solid.
Oh yeah, and you can see that too. That's one thing I love about the day inks.
Well, that's what Archie Goodwin loved it, and Archie Goodwin didn't love it. He loved the ship, but he didn't like the way the Wookiee looked. And the one he really got dumped on a lot, Gene, was the hair of Thor. When he inked the hair of Thor, they'd say, because he would add blacks to it. Because he had black on the face and black on the arm and the hands. Gene said there had to be black added to the hair, shadow to the hair. Oh, no, can't have that. So, well, you can't have, if you have these heavy shadows on everything, that has to be on the hair. So he would add the hair all blowing in the wind and stuff, and the light work to it that Gene could add to the stuff, and he had to knock that back, knock it back. And then finally, he had a better
relationship with Archie, though. I mean, right?
Yeah, he had a good relationship with Archie. What happened was after Gene did the issue, they told him to knock it all back. Fan letters came in and complained over the issue. What's the matter with Gene? Is he sick? Is he not feeling good? What's going on? What's wrong? Well, no. So Archie's a big man to admit, hey, I'm wrong. They want the detail in there. They
Right.
want all the spaceships, all the little, looks like nowadays looks like the back of a computer chip. It does, which is why Gene worked for Marvel, because he was doing those spaceships for Star Reach.
Hmm.
One of the guys in the bullpen, or one of the guys in the edited department, was seeing the stuff that Gene was doing for FASA publications out of New York.
I haven't heard of that one.
He did all those really, really bad fanzines. That was, the shark attack killers, the UFOs, are they real, are they not? And whatever was a trend, he would do a black and white magazine on. I think it's
He did work for Imagine with Star Reach too, right?
Yeah, he worked at Imagine Star Reach, and then after he worked for those guys, he worked for the black and white. He did like 30, 40 stories for them. He did. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to talk a lot about you because I loved your work that I've seen in Black Zeppelin, and I try to do some research on you, and I just could not find a ton. To tell you a funny story, I looked up David Day. I Googled David Day, and I don't know if you know, but there is an author,
the writer.
and so there was a while that I was like, oh, so Gene Day's brother became a Tolkien scholar. So I was like trying to brush up on all my Tolkien stuff this morning, and then I also found out that scholar, and some people consider him kind of like not 100% accurate and kind of fraudulent in some places. And I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into?
No.
Then I realized, no, this is thank God I'm working with the David Day. So
yeah.
But that was a funny story. But so you were born at 65 and
65.
Gananoque, is that how it's pronounced?
But the hospital's Kingston up the road, Kingston, Ontario, or Lake Ontario is right in the St. River. That's where we all were born in Kingston. But Gene lived here for the first little bit, and then we lived in the rural areas for a while around the area and stuff.
Known as the Gan.
Yeah,
is that how it's pronounced?
Gananoque, Ganaoque.
Gananoque.
Was the old radio commercial. Come to Gananoque, Ganaoque.
Okay.
It means a river runs through the town. That's what it means, because there was actually a river that runs and splits the whole town in half.
Oh, cool.
Between us and Kingston.
Cool. Okay. Well, I don't have a whole lot of information other than you're the brother of Gene and Dan Day, but I don't have a lot of information on you before you started working for Renegades. I'm curious, like what other than Gene and Dan, like what your interest in comics was and art, and like how you grew and developed into that.
Well, I was 18 when I worked on Black Zeppelin.
Oh,
it was only
really?
2 years after. Yeah, so that was wasn't my first job, but it kind of was the first comic book work. What happened was I was always interested in painting and coloring. That's what I was. And that was my first published. No, that was my second published cover.
Are you
and the
kidding
editor,
me?
Joe Slavis, the editor, which is a good friend of Gene, and married Gene's ex-wife after he died, hated the pencil drawing but loved the painting. And it was the same way with the fifth cover too. Was hated the pencil drawing but loved the painting.
I thought it was amazing. That's your second published cover.
Second published cover. The first one would have been the cover to North Star, the Matrix North Star. It was a superhero cover.
Okay.
And then that summer I worked for Chaosium, which is an RPG role-playing game.
All right.
And I did over the years, I've done 20 covers for them. So I was doing, doing paintings.
Did you always lean more towards painting than inking? Because that's how I when I saw Black Zeppelin #1 and I saw your inks laid down for the strip, and I think of another story in here, blew my mind, David. Your inking is incredible.
Well, Gene taught me a bit on their stuff like that, and I was, he was grooming me, in to help him out on some of the stuff. Like I said, I was young. I still had another couple of years of high school, but Mom didn't care, because Mom knew by that time that there was in '82. There, other than Joe Kubert, there was no comic book schools. There was none. You had to go. That was the only one. Now there's several out there, but there was none. And Mom and Dad knew that they could make a living from it. But I never liked. I liked comics and I read comics, but I liked Hal Foster, but I always wanted to be, to me, the idea was I wanted to do an album cover. I wanted to do, the painting on the side of a van. That was my Sistine Chapel.
That's
it was
awesome.
not the other stuff. And then I was
well, you succeeded. My God.
well, that was oils. I got Danny's oils. Danny had it and he gave it to me. Danny didn't realize that you had to use a medium with oil, and I read a few of the books on it stuff, and so I realized you had to add turpentine and linseed oil to it. And then colors have always come natural to me. I don't know what it is. We all have a specific gift, each one of us brothers, if you study us, that Gene's storytelling. Gene is a masterful storyteller.
Yeah.
With pacing and everything else. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the industry better than him at that. He'll even admit, not the greatest artist, but the storytelling, and then of course with the lighting, his inks were at the very first of Master of Kung Fu was better than his pencils, and then his inks got just as good, or his pencils got just as good towards the end of the series. Danny's, on the other hand, was he's a machine. You can't stop him. Every day, book it, he'll get a page out. And he's really good. If you ever go look at the Sherlock Holmes that he did, he's a really good inker. And he's a masterful inker with a pen and nib. He doesn't ink what Gene did with what was a brush and a nib, but he did with a nib. And then just colors just came natural to me, which Gene was colorblind. He couldn't. We had to write brown and I had to write green on the colors. There's only like 12 paintings Gene in total ever done, if that many.
He painted this.
He painted that, but that's mostly ink. That's the black is ink, and he worked on a thing called stipple paper, and it's rough. You turn it sideways, you see little bumps in it, and you would add the crayon. He would this black crayon, like who was the artist? Not Virgil Finlay. There's another one that came out around the same time as him. The same companies to produce it. I forget now what his name was, but he used to use a crayon, and it would give you. Same with Alfred Cully used to do the same thing with Conan sometimes, black and white Conans. He would use a crayon and shade it in, and that's what Gene would do. Mostly it was ink with poster paint and acrylics and watercolor. He would do that.
So did this come totally naturally for you, or was it just because, well, it's the family business? And I mean,
it's no, the first time I wanted to draw was I laid down and I was tracing a creepy and eerie vampire that I liked, and Gene said, well, do you want to draw? And I was about 6 or 7. And I went, yeah, about 6. And he grabbed it, threw it in the garbage, and said, no, this is what you do. You break it down, the ball and circle, and there you go on it like that. But okay, that's what it was. That's all I needed.
Cool. Okay.
Looking over top his shoulder, just just seeing him doing it all the time. And then Danny, Gene was. If I could go upstairs and show you his old, well, like even here, if you look at his old stuff on, this was him at 24 years old. Was him inking this. He inked this. No, look at it right here. Yeah, he inked that. That was penciled and inked by him at 24.
Wow.
Okay, that's, and again, that 2024 and stuff, and it's okay, but it's kind of crude. And then just a year later, his ability, is much better skilled. His ability was, with it just a year later.
Wow.
And he was just evolving that fast. And because he learned all those and all that, Danny was where he was at like 16, and I was there because I learned from them too. I was at that level at like 12. I was where they were at 16 and 18 when I was 12 on there with it. And it's still like, that's my weakest thing is still the anatomy and drawing. I'll have a piece where I won't like it in the pencils, and then somehow I'll pull it out of my ass when it comes to the paint, and poof, oh, that worked.
Yeah, the color fixes it, huh? Did you start with oils, or what was your?
I started with watercolor because that's what Gene was working in. So I started with watercolor, bought me a set when I was 14, 15. And then that summer, I was 15. So I'd be 14 because it was that summer of 15. I did my first oil painting that summer that he passed away. So I was 15 in July. and he died in September. So I was did another painting of a copy of a Frazetta. The first one was my own. Second was a copy of Frazetta, and then Gene liked it so much that he had a job to do a fantasy RPG cover, and he said, "You can outpaint me already." So I was gonna. He said, and he gave me went to the Dark Fantasy book, pick out a drawing that I liked. I roughed it down, and then I was going to start painting it on it, and then he passed away that time. So and then I ended up getting the job. I ended up doing the cover because they offered it to me like within a year or two. So they've seen the samples on it there. So
nice.
And then the first 5 years of covering covers, other than about 3, the rest of them, Danny penciled them and I painted them. Other than the one there that you see, the 2 for Black Zeppelin are my pencils as a kid, and then the cover too. I did. What was the other one? Did another one. I penciled it. Another thing. I know those 2, and there's a third one. I can't remember now what the book was.
From Renegade.
I don't know. Oh yeah, it was. It was Shadows from the Grave. I did that one.
Shadows from the Grave. That's one I was going to ask about.
Yeah, the werewolf story.
Yeah.
On it. I only did that job because I wanted to do the cover. That's the only reason I did those 2 issues for. I did not want to do the insides.
Yeah.
I had this idea. I want to do this werewolf coming out of the snow, out of the mountains, and purples and blues. And that's I did the wraparound cover for.
It's a beautiful cover. I'll display it on the screen whenever I show this video out and edit it, because it's awesome.
Well, that was the one I realized that, okay, I think, I think I got it in me to make a living doing the fantasy stuff. And then I just, we just did. Then Sherlock Holmes was at the same time, and I was doing all the covers on Sherlock Holmes with Danny.
You did some for Murder as well. Murder was another book for Renegade. So if you don't mind, can we circle back to just like the founding of Renegade? So it was founded by, help me, Denis Lubert. Is that her name?
Dave Sims' wife.
Yeah, Dave Sims' ex-wife, right?
Yeah. At that time, ex-wife. But when they first came to us with wanting to do Black Zeppelin, they were married at that time.
Oh, okay.
That was in the 84.
Dave considered Gene his mentor.
Well, they were to make the world even a more smaller place. Gene was working on that summer that he got quit from Marvel, and was going to DC to work on Batman.
Right.
Fantagraphics got a hold of him to do the Shadow. They had the rights to do the Shadow, and they wanted Gene to do it. And
that would have been awesome.
Well, he said, and he went and made a phone call and said to Dave Sim, "Listen, you're better at the writing. I'll plot with you, but you're better at the writing on it." So Dave was going to take over. He was going to write it. I seen him. He was doing Cerebus, and him and Gene were going to do that. That was in the summer of '82, or like September the 10th.
We could have had a Dave Sim and Gene Day Shadow book.
Yeah, but it was a go. It was a go.
Wow.
That's why there was such a big smear campaign when Gene passed away on it there in Fantagraphics, because they just lost a golden goose. I think, in a way.
What do you mean smear campaign? I don't think I privy to that.
There was the whole Jim Shooter killed Gene Day.
Oh, yeah.
At that time there, which was didn't happen, but it didn't help with a bad ticker. It didn't help.
Right.
Like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day and drinking 27 cups of coffee, and literally 1 year where he was driving down home to Christmas, Mom and Dad's, turned to Gail, who was driving the car, and said, "I haven't been out of the house in a year." And literally, he'd not been out of the house in a year.
Wow.
The whole year.
Working so hard.
And everybody came there. Every weekend there was somebody different at the house. Wow. There was writers, there was other publishers, there's Canadian, anybody that wanted to do anything pretty much dipped their toe in Ganakwi at that time.
So Dave Sim and Denny came to Gail, Gene's widow, and you too?
Danny.
Okay, they came to Danny first?
At Ottawa Comic Con. And I was like just a little pimply face 18-year-old kid there sitting beside him, and I was just showing my wares, and we just got I was happy on the Sunday because we got I got the Northgard cover, my first cover. I was 18, and sold, and then they're gonna, they're happy. They said, "Can we hire you, Dan?" And Dan said, "Well, yeah, but instead of me painting it, how about we have this guy?" And they were like, "Oh, we can have it." Oh, they're all
the
happy.
Day Crew.
Yeah, so that went there. So then Denny pulled Danny aside and said, "We want to do. How about, is that material still around?" we want to do that. And so that one was the last book, I think, that was done under Dave's leadership, 100% under Dave's leadership. Meanwhile, it was done through Renegade Press, but Dave had his say on like the first story. That first story being it was Dave's picking. He said, "No, that's the first story we go with." So
yeah,
he told Joe to put that as the start of it. Him, this mad cartoonist, telling and it being
it's
him.
a great story and it's a great start. And you did the inks on it.
Yeah, because it was sitting around. It was, and he'd done it. I'd say probably that would be 75, 76. It looks like his style around that time there, and he had that one.
Now it's Denis, and you mentioned this earlier. No, actually, Gail wrote the note from the editor in the very first issue, and she mentioned, and you mentioned earlier before we push record that Gene actually had the idea to do Black Zeppelin way back in the day, and it just never took flight somehow. So, like, what?
Well, it never took. What happened was Gene started off doing the Dark Fantasy, which was a fancy. When he couldn't get nobody to buy his stuff in '73. So he started doing Dark Fantasy, and then Gene got to a point where the last, like, so many issues, like 13 on, I think, other people were putting it together. He was helping out, but he was letting this person edit and that person do this book and that one there and stuff on it. He had a sense of it, so he wanted to evolve, and he realized that these black and white magazines that the guy in New York was doing was kind of what he was kind of leaning maybe Black Zeppelin or Dark Fantasy to become, which what Black Zeppelin would have been, he wanted like a real story in it, like maybe an 8-page, 10-page story with a couple of illustrations in it, and then a movie review and other things like that, and then it could be a couple of comic book stories in it. Was his original plan. But Gene always was. He had that Beatle mentality where the Apple Records, let's help out our fellow artists. That's what Gene was always. That's why there's Dave Sim and there's Danny and then there's me, because Gene had that teaching mentality, that pass it on mentality.
So Renegade was like your first major foray into the industry, and then it looks like, they folded, I think 88, 89, and you kind of like looked like you had other jobs elsewhere, like Caliber Press, Innovation, Malibu. You did Dead World.
It looks like all afterwards.
All after Black Zeppelin.
You
eventually in '90s, you and Dan, I think, underwent. You did like 4 issues called the Day Brothers Present.
Through Gary at Caliber. It was that Gary with Caliber. It was, and it was just to we had these stories kicking around, and so there were some of them were Gene's, and some of them were other stuff. So we did, but at the same time we were doing that, we were also working for Marvel inking Spider-Man.
Right.
We were working for Innovations, working on the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Lost in Space, the Quantum Leap, and so we're jumping all over. Like when we were doing back there with Renegade, their bestseller Renegade was Danny's Sherlock Holmes. It was selling like 15,000 copies every 2 months.
Oh wow!
Which, the black and white book.
That's awesome.
The black and white book. The bestseller she ever had was Black Zeppelin 1. It sold 20,000, and then it dropped down to because Joe was incredibly late on getting the book done on time. That's why there was no 6th issue, because he missed the deadline so much that it just got canceled on it. But that was Joe.
Well, you did also some Marvel stuff, not just for Spider-Man. You did a couple of like a Hulk and Silver Surfer. You did quite a few things, but then it looks like, actually one that I did want to talk briefly about is, and I remember actually seeing this in Wizard, Raver, that you did with Walter Koenig, who's Chekhov from Star Trek. So how was that? How did that roll about? And
that was great. My mother went right out of the world, because when he called there at nighttime and stuff, he talked And we talked how, it's because we chatted probably at least twice a week when we did the book. We did 3 issues. So we chatted for, at least twice a week.
That's awesome.
He was just filming the last Star Trek Generations when we were working on that book.
So how did Walter pick you guys out for the Raver? How did that end up rolling about?
We were doing stuff like I always had this thing where we would get the Gene thing where we'd help people out, and we were making a good paycheck on the innovations but Malibu Comics, which was Adventure and Eternity and small black and white, we were still doing covers for them, and we were still doing stories for them when they needed a hand. We get paid crap, like an 8-page story, and they paid us $150. It didn't matter. Yeah, it was just crap it was, but we would do it for them. Well, when they got their big break with Image, they said, well, this is now we're going to push our own books. And that was one of the transfer books over to their what was their superhero line that was really, really big.
Ultraverse.
The Ultraverse line, yeah. Mm-hmm. This was some of the books that were done just before the Ultraverse kicked in, and on it. But what happened was you didn't see me anymore on comics after '84, is because the RPG world, whenever they seen anything, they would say, "Oh, it looks too comic booky." So instantly I said, well, there's 2 of us, brother. You go to comics, I'll go to the RPG world.
In 94, you said?
94, yeah. 94,
yeah,
94.
That's what I noticed is like you kind of dropped off, and then but you can't, it's really hard to find people's work in the RPG world. You don't, I mean, at least I haven't found like a RPG database or
it's out there. You have to go to a place called Drive-In RPG, and which sells all the product. And also if you go to another spot that's called Forgotten Realms, just Google David Day Forgotten Realms, and you'll see. And then also now everything from I did on the Dungeons and Dragon magazines have all been downloaded now, and most of the other games now have all been downloaded. You can get it for free on the. Well, you can look at it for free. Print it off costs money, but you can look at it for free and see the artwork on the RPGs.
I did notice that you did work with Ed Greenwood, I think, on Elminster's Guide to the Realm. So what was that like working with Ed? It
was great because he just lives up the road. He lives in Coburg, Ontario. So he only lives like an hour and 15 minutes away.
Oh, cool.
Their stuff. So yeah, it was great working with him on it, and we did like 27 of those illustrations, and they're huge. They're about 20, I'd say 32 inches by maybe 20 inches. They're huge pieces of our illustration board because they're split in 2, and you had to get so fine with it because it was all these cutaways. They wanted the thing that was going on big. There was a Star Wars cutaway where you could see the spaceships,
right?
And it would cut away, and they would show you all the hiding spots and everything else. And they kind of thought that was kind of cool. Let's do that to fantasy. So they would have like a mountain, and inside the mountain there'd be little caves, and inside the caves there'd be this, and inside these castles there'd be hideaways and stuff, and there'd be money that you could hide, and black magic you could hide, and all that other stuff. So I was still doing comic books at the time. If you go and you look up any of the Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken, that's 80% my work. It was. Danny did the roughs. I did the tight pencils, and I inked most of it. And same as the Elviras. If you look at all the Elviras, which we did 50 issues of it, I drew all the Elvira figures. Danny didn't draw good looking women. I drew all the Elviras and that. But my name didn't go on it though, because it was, again, you have to separate. The world can't take it if you can do 2, if you can go one way to the next too much. It blows their mind that you could draw a Cow and Chicken, and you could draw, a Clive, a Stephen King head
right.
cut off.
Yeah.
They can't seem to handle it. They can't.
That's one thing I noticed myself as an artist is people get really attached to a certain style. And if you deviate from that, and it's
they
just
don't like it.
Yeah, and
They
they
don't like
can't.
it.
You're right. They can't handle it. But
They
I
can't handle
love that in an artist. I love
Well, yeah,
when somebody can be versatile and
yeah.
try different things.
They
And
don't
yeah,
mind it if you're versatile, but you have to kind of still look the same. You do, you know, you kind of still look the same. Meanwhile, if you go look at Alfred Akella inked most of the Casper the Friendly Ghost and Hotspots for Harvey.
mhm.
And a lot of people don't know that. You know, he was inking all those pages.
Wow,
He was, you know, and who would have thought Alfred Akella was doing that? You know,
yeah.
you know, they'd give him a stack, and you know, he'd go home with like 300 pages and come back in a couple of weeks, and they'd all be done.
Hey, it's a paycheck.
It's a paycheck. It's a paycheck. Yeah, it's a paycheck.
That's awesome.
So, so
So,
that's
so how did you dive into the fantasy world? Just through connections through the comic
well,
world, and
because
how did that work out?
I knew the RPG world already
Uh-huh.
from working with Chaosium, and I worked with like several other companies. I worked with Fantasy Games Unlimited. I worked for West End Games on Star Wars. I worked blah blah blah, a bunch of other ones. One's in Tennessee, one's in Chicago, one's all over. Then I finally cracked the big egg, which was going to Lake, what the hell is it, Lake Geneva, whatever it is there, where TSR is.
Mm.
And then I got into Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine, and I was probably doing 6 magazines a year for those guys, doing articles inside of it for like 12 years.
Man, I got some stacks. I need to go start looking for your name there. I did not
Oh yeah,
realize that.
oh yeah.
That is awesome.
And Danny helped me out with a lot of it. Like we worked on it together too. We did on it because like when it came, I would do anything to do with color was 100% mine.
Mhm.
Anything to do with the inks, he had the final say on it because he does that beautiful line work and stuff, which
Right.
works really good to the fantasy stuff.
Mhm.
You know, because it looks like wood carving and stuff. So it worked out. I'm not stupid. You know, my inks were stronger on the I'm clean. I'm a comic book guy when I ink.
Yeah.
But mine looks stronger on the Johnny Bravo, I Am Weasel, Cow and Chicken stuff on
Cool.
it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So where have you been since then? So I assume that a lot of that was freelance.
Yeah,
So
all
I'm
of it's freelance.
so
Then
I'm
I worked
curious
for
how your career kind of evolved from there, because I've seen recently that you've been doing a lot of Lord of the Rings work.
yeah, well, I got into doing the Magic the Gathering bubblegum cards, the Harry Potter bubblegum cards,
Mm.
and I worked for Fantasy Flight Games. What was some of the sets I worked? I worked on the Game of Thrones before it was a TV show. It was done through the company Iron Crown Enterprise or Flight Fantasy Games. I can't remember which one it was, but I worked on the Legend of the Five Rings card game, and they all pay different. Like you get paid from when I worked on Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, they paid $200 a card, and they apologized for it. But when you did the Magic the Gathering, they paid you $1,000 a card, and they gave you like 3 months to work on the jobs. So
Wow.
you take your time on it. So you give you like 3 or 4 cards, you do it. When I worked on Harry Potter, they paid $1,200 US and gave you the same amount of time. And that's the one I did the most work for. I did like 50 cards for them, but only so many came out. But didn't matter. I got paid for it on it stuff.
Yeah.
But they did the first 2 movies, and then I just did bubblegum cards and stuff like that.
That's
And
awesome.
RPGs. That's what I always liked was cards. Even when I was a kid, I used to collect all the like when we go to the store. I had comics with my brothers, but I might have only had 3 issues of Superman, maybe 4 issues of Batman, and about 10 issues of Spider-Man. What I had was the very first Kiss magazine. I had it. I had Crack and Mad magazine, and I had the Crack and Mad magazine ones with the photographs of the horror movies with the stilly captions in it. And then I had like every issue of the movie stuff, like Welcome Back, Kotter, all the what else? What else at the time that was big in that time period? But I had the bubblegum cards too of all that stuff. I had the Kiss bubblegum cards. I had the Happy Days. I had Charlie's Angels. I always liked merchandising. So
that's awesome.
So then when they offered the sketch cards, I got into doing it, and I, went through that path and doing all of it. And
So do you have
And
like a singular artist that's like your primary influence from all of that stuff, or?
if it would, when I was a kid, really, really young, it would have been Hal Foster.
Yeah.
Hal Foster would have been, of course, the first, and then Frank Pizzetta.
Hmm.
You liked that, and then I realized what the problem with Frank was, you couldn't get a business suit. If you wanted to paint a nice business suit, you couldn't get it. How do you do folds of clothes? Well, you don't really get
Right.
that from Frank.
Right.
So I realized, okay. And then I started studying Norman Rockwell
Hmm.
when I was about 17, 18, and then from there, now I don't look at anybody hardly, other than maybe at the most the Hildebrands. I look at a bit. I
Hmm.
like their bright colors on this stuff, and I like how they want light one side of something on it, and with the bright colors to pop it out. So I probably would lean towards that with the
Awesome.
acrylics. With oils, I always lean towards. I always like the real photographic stuff is what I always lean more towards. And if you
Yeah.
look at that's the overall thing that we had, all of us, with our career was even with Gene, his master kung fu was he, he made Danny find 3 poses slightly different for every pose on every page, and he'd pick the one that he wanted. And he would use, for reference, he'd use Neil Adams, he would use Buscema, he would use anybody, he would use and then he'd slip in, there's the car coming by, well, it'd be a real photograph of a car, but inked in Gene's style,
Right.
which his style of inking was, if you look at it, it breaks down to old from the 70s, old merchandise, like the old Sears catalogs, a tea
Hmm.
kettle.
Hmm.
Because his friend that he lived up in Toronto, went to college with, he illustrated for Sears catalog, doing tea kettles and stuff like that, and toasters. So he had that kind of stylized stuff with his cars and his ships and his planes and stuff.
So are you still working oils and acrylics now, or are you
I
going
don't work in
digital at
oils
all?
anymore. Nobody will put up with the smell of it cooking. That's what I used to go every night and put it in front of a window with the piece of heat retardant against the wall, and then lean the painting against it, and then cook the hell out of the painting every night, to take it back to the studio the next day. Well, with
Yeah.
acrylics, you ain't gotta do that. So
Yeah.
and actually, a friend of mine told me years ago I should have painted with acrylics, because it's more of what my style is, and that actually is true. It does lend itself to how I work and how I paint.
Is you recently just posted some Lord of the Rings cards
Yeah,
online? Those were done with acrylic.
yeah, all
They're
acrylic.
phenomenal,
Yeah. Thanks.
phenomenal work. Is that
Yeah.
what you're working on right now, or?
I just finished that up, and I'm just working on artist proofs now. Right now, I'm doing a lot of next month and a half to 2 months. I'm just doing private commissions that I've been paid for already. That I've for the last 6 months to a year. So I'm finishing it up. Then I want to come out with my own card set.
Ooh.
Sick Monsters is one set I'm working on, called Sick Monster, with the
Okay.
SIT monsters, and they're going to be like humorous monsters, like runny nose Ray, earwax Ernie, those kind of things.
Yes.
With a little thing on the back of it, funny little story, on it. And then the other set I wanted to do, which is because the publishers I'm working for are telling me I'm wasting my time working for them. I should be doing my own. And if Gene was alive, he'd be saying the same thing.
Mm.
Because that's what George Slavis now. Because I talked to him, what do you think Gene would be doing now if he was alive? He'd be publishing. Gene would be.
Yeah.
There'd be no 2 words about it. He'd be publishing. He'd be publishing novels, and he'd be publishing magazines. He'd be publishing, well, magazines are kind of dead, but novels and comics he'd be doing.
Yeah. It's a shame that magazines are dead, actually.
Yeah.
I miss magazines.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I
I
used to collect all of them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Out years talking about Cracked and Mad, and like, yep,
Yeah.
that was my childhood right there.
Yeah.
So Sick Monster, that's what we can look forward to, huh? Do you have a date for that,
Sick
or?
Monsters, and another one is it's a title. It's about 27 words long. That it's Dr. Van Helsing's Grotesque Monsters versus the Earth.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
an old. I'm trying to go for an old 1950s drive-in theater kind of feel with it.
Yes.
So, and it's
Yes.
going to be like Mars Attacks, but the violence is going to be like a blood gore on it.
That's
So
awesome. So
yeah.
where can we find these? When will these be
Those
coming
ones will
out?
be
And where?
going through. I'm going to go through Kickstarter. So they wanted the what's his face wanted me to do. Richard Parks wanted me to do it this Halloween. I didn't have time. Doing too many private commissions, but that's what I'm going to do afterwards. So after the new year comes around.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Kickstarter, David Day. These projects have got to live. So definitely you'll get some supporters here.
Well, Richard Parks, I mean, he's doing phenomenally well with them. And he did the Ultraman set, and I think the series once, and he only asked for this much money, and he got to somewhere around $180,000 was what he's gonna sell it on. Now he's been collating cards since July, and I think since July he's been collating them, and I think he's got about a quarter left. He has to collate it, but he does really well. His sets does, but he puts a lot in though. He puts a lot in.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing a Kickstarter for my next project too. I'm in a place where my kids and family, I just don't have the time, but I have a lot of friends that have done it and they've had a lot of success. So
yeah, a lot of them are Tops is doing it now.
Yeah,
Tops is bringing it out, and Tops is losing a lot of project now too. They've lost baseball. They don't have baseball no more.
Oh wow.
Baseball card, no more Tops. No more Tops wrestling cards.
So what are they doing?
They're really promoting the hell out of their wacky packaging and the products that they own. You're seeing like a set where before wacky packaging and the Garbage Pail Kids were like, coming out like one set every couple of years. Now you're seeing one set come out every 3 months.
Yeah, that's true. I'm friends with actually a couple of Garbage Pail Kids artists, and they're just like putting out content all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's weird that we're living in a world where baseball cards are not a thing. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's a thing, but what it is it's such a people bid on contracts.
Yeah.
And there's no loyalty. There's no loyalty that when nobody else wanted this product, everybody thought that baseball cards were stupid. They did it. So they lose the contracts to it. So
I mean, kind of like, how does it feel to be one of the legendary Day brothers? Like, I mean, just to me, you guys are legendary at this point, and I know there's quite a few people out there that feel that way. So
I'm just happy that I have the memories of spending all the time with him. And if you ever met Gene, you would understand he was truly one of a kind. I mean, I don't care if you collected bubblegum stamps, if you collected pet rocks. When you got done talking to him, you were just, I'm so excited. I gotta go collect more. You run off, you would. He just got you very, very creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
That's what Dave Sim describes it.
Yeah.
Dave said he'd go down there with 20 illustrations, and Gene would have 150 done. And he said, I thought, whenever I came back, I realized I got to do more. That was that worker man mentality that Gene had. That that was very contagious. It was.
You can feel it. You can feel that. I mean, even for someone who's never met him, you can just feel his presence move through his work and the people he affected. So
and he's one of the only artists I can honestly say was getting better at every page. When you started off a book to the last page, I mean, it was good the first page, but the last page left you, whoa, what could he, look like? Because he was getting better and better and better.
Well, he did fabulous work on Shang-Chi and Star Wars and everything else. And the work that you and Dan both have done too is just phenomenal. So I hope you keep creating.
Oh, we will. We do. I do. I'm still on. I'm having fun painting right now, doing it and stuff, and I'm getting better all the time at it. And I feel, and I'm improving and better at it. So as long as I keep doing it at my age, that's pretty good at 56. So
that's awesome.
You keep on getting better. I shouldn't be getting any better at 56. I should peter out. You should plateau out. You should have your style and ride it through, but. For some reason, I'm getting a little bit better at it. I don't know. It's making sense to me. I don't need to do that. more. I don't need to do this. I can cut back there. I can add more here. Things
It's
are,
the day juices, man. It's the day juices.
yeah, that's fun.
I mean, I talked to Rick Veach not too long ago, and
Yeah.
he's saying the same thing. He's feeling like he's just now even getting to the work that he just feels the most passionate about, and he feels like his craft is better. So I mean, I think there are some people when like we were talking about earlier, when they hit that one style they do and they just do that over and over again.
Yeah.
I think you plateau. But if you're open to always evolving and changing and getting better, like you don't stop and you don't plateau. And that's what I'm looking forward to, though, that I'm, 43 and I feel like I'm just getting started. So
so that's a good thing, about that. You get that feeling you do on it there.
Well, I hope you're still, where else can we find you? I know you have a Facebook page. Is there anywhere else we can find you and support your work?
Nope, just Facebook design. Just have it on Facebook and all the other spin-offs from the Facebook and stuff. I'm just starting to go back to do conventions here this March. I haven't done a convention in probably 10 years.
I'm going to possibly do my first one this next year. So
is it? Okay. Well, I'm doing it next March. I'm doing my first one in like 10, 12 years. Cool. The last one I went to was the one where Gene got inducted to the Canadian Cannibal Hall of Fame. And we got the award for him for that. And then then after that, I went to one more because I went to the first Gene Day award we gave away under the Schuster Awards. Dave Sim gave away an award for a bunch of years, and then the Schusters took it over because it's all part of the big thing there.
Okay. So we can find you on Facebook, and you'll be posting your Kickstarter stuff there then.
Yeah, on it stuff. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, in the video description, I'll put this out. I can put your Facebook page on there. Is that good?
Oh yeah. I don't mind anything. Yeah. Awesome. I don't mind that. I have no secrets.
No, it's great. I want people to support you because your work's awesome.